Yeah,
I'd like to call the Township Committee meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Here.
Present.
Here. Here.
Here. To take a moment of silence for private reflection, and please keep in your thoughts the passing of Joan Domaraski and Mary C. Spera. We will adjourn to executive session at the end of the agenda, and if there's any confirmation, we'll be out in public to announce it. 3, addition or deletion of late items for consideration tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Early public comment on agenda items not listed for public hearings. None, sir? Thank you. First item on the agenda is the budget. This is a public hearing on the budget amendment. Does anyone in the public wish to speak on it?
Move to close the public portion.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Move to adopt the budget amendment.
I'll second that.
The motion is second.
It's just the amendment.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Mrs., you want a roll call?
Do a roll call.
Yeah, give us a voice roll call.
Ms. Gatto,
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard,
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz,
Yes.
Mrs. Link,
Yes.
Mayor Silva.
Yes.
All yes
you.
and carried.
Joan, you have something to read?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Hamilton, County of Atlantic, that the budget hereinafter set forth is hereby adopted and shall constitute an appropriation for the purposes stated of the sums therein set forth as appropriations and authorization of the amount of $17,495,685.91. Tell I don't read those figures very often.
Is that it?
That's it.
Thank you. Next item is the adoption of the 2015 budget as amended.
Mr. Mayor.
Move it.
Go ahead.
I second.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, again, I just want to highlight what's going on with our 2015 budget. Again, I think it's something we've talked about numerous meetings here and that we as a committee are extremely proud of, and we want to make sure that the residents are understanding our budget as we're in budget season here. So our 2015 budget continues to reduce debt, and we've reduced debt over $10 million over the last 8 to 9 years. We continue our pay-as-you-go plan, paying cash for one-time expenses. We continue to fund public events, and we are paying for our budgeted pay increase for our employees, no more than 2%, which is where our cap is. That excludes any kind of a raise for Township Committee or any kind of a raise for seasonal employees. And probably better than what's in the budget is what's not in the budget is a zero tax increase from a tax levy standpoint. No structural deficit, no layoffs or furloughs, no school deferral, and no elimination of services. And this, again, is something that we've worked really hard for over the last several years among all the various committees that have sat here to make sure we are in a position of fiscal sanity in Hamilton Township, a place that is affordable and continues to be affordable, and services that we provide are affordable and able to be sustained as we move along. We are very happy to be putting forward a budget, hopefully that'll get approved in a few minutes, that does not add any additional burden to our residents, and I really only can hope that the schools follow this example in some way, shape, or form and try to mitigate as much burden to our taxpayers as possible.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments, Emily. We had a motion and a second. Are there any questions or comments? Can we have a voice roll call, please, Mrs. Anderson?
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz? Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
And thank you. The other thing I would like to say to the public is, obviously, when you heard Amy's comments about the budget, that there's no municipal tax increase, when you do receive your real estate tax bills, take a good look at them, because it separates out where the taxes are going. And when you look at the municipality, if you were to look at a dollar bill, we're only responsible for spending 29 cents of every dollar. 53.3 cents of every dollar is going to the one that Amy referred to as the schools. And we don't begrudge the schools that. And the remainder goes to the county. So obviously, we hear a lot from the public because we do mail out the tax bills. And they said, well, you said there's no municipal tax increase. Well, we made a point to realize that every Monday now, when you open up the newspaper, like you did today, you saw 18 or 19 pages of sheriff's sales. This has been going on repeatedly for the last several months. And I think people must understand that the public is hurting. We heard our residents loud and clear over the years, and we try to return as much as we can back to them. So this is a strong budget. It's a healthy budget, and I thank all of committee for their diligence in working along with this, and hopefully the residents will understand and approve and appreciate what we've been doing to work with them. Okay, the next item on the agenda is discussions. Formal action may be taken. A, the resolution GOB 1-2015, providing for the combination of certain issues of the general obligation bonds or notes of the Township of Hamilton and the County of Atlantic, New Jersey, in a single issue of general obligation bonds in the aggregate principal amount of $9,520,000. Now, we'll be going out on this. Cindy, you're here, and good evening. When is this? Could you
In
just?
simple terms, this is us going to permanent financing.
Right, permanent financing, correct. When are we going out? When is the bond sale going to be?
May 19th is the...
May 19th? Thank you. Okay.
Okay, make a motion on that resolution?
I'll second it.
Have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Mrs. Anderson?
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
And Mayor Silva?
Yes, thank you.
All yes and carried.
B, Resolution GOB 2-2015, determining the form and other details of the $9,520,000 General Obligation Bond Series 2015 of the Township of Hamilton and the County of Atlantic, New Jersey, and providing for their sale.
Again, part of the process here, so I'll make that motion.
Second.
Have a second. Questions or comments? Another roll call, Mrs. Anderson.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you. Item C, the request for a 2-year extension of the redevelopment agreement between the Township and the Land Resources Solutions for the landfill redevelopment area. Phil, you have, who's here with you tonight? Would you come up with the gentleman? Well, that's right, we saw this gentleman last time. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Doing.
Good. Make yourself, you want to sit, if you want to sit or stand at the mic, whatever is easier for you. Thank you.
And that was Jeff Day? Jeff Dye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Oh,
It's all right. I know who I am.
If you could make sure our clerk also gets a copy. I will. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, as mentioned, we are
requesting a 2-year extension of the original 4-year redevelopment agreement. We've made some progress, we've had some delays, and we're excited to give you an update tonight and request our extension. Just organized my memo here in three categories of remediation. As you may recall, we complete.
I'm sorry, just for the public standpoint, can you just kind of remind everybody, like,
Sure.
who your company is and what
No
our
problem.
original agreement was, just,
Absolutely. Land Resource Solutions is a brownfield and landfill redevelopment company. We have half a dozen redevelopment designations in the state. We're working on either brownfields or landfill projects. We're part of it's a small company. We're part of another group. We have a consulting company that's part of our group as well. And we originally approached the township to try to get them some assistance in funding and a complete investigation of the landfill, which has been completed. That was done in 2 parts. And that results of that investigation we presented about a year ago, a year and a couple months ago. And what it determined is that really there's very little active discharge to groundwater or any other receptors from the landfill at this point. Most all of the contaminants or potential contaminants have degraded in the landfill, and there's just some low oxygen levels underneath in the groundwater. A lot of the other impacts are in the area are from some other users, and we pointed that out in our report to the DEP, and they have that information to go forward. So our plan now is to try to put that property back into productive reuse.
great.
We've presented some conceptual ideas, which I've outlined and reminded again in the memo. One, obviously, that you hear about and read about in the paper a lot is solar on the actual landfill piece. That's a very viable use here, given the immediately adjacent county facilities, some of the other private facilities, makes it attractive from that perspective. The fact that we're in the Atlantic City Electric grid isn't as attractive, but again, because those adjacent users, it kind of outweighs that a little bit. We also have interest for...
Excuse me, why is that a disadvantage, the fact that we're part of the Atlantic City Electric grid?
The Atlantic City Electric grid is at least Atlantic City Electric. Now, maybe with the new change in ownership of Atlantic City Electric, that may change. They have indicated that their grid is at capacity, and they don't want any more,
I got you.
generators. And
Okay,
much more so than the other 2 main, JCP&L or First Energy and PSE&G. So
and
it's-
apparently they can make that choice. They're allowed to make that choice?
well,
or-
it goes through the feds and the PJM that regulates the grid over this whole region.
Right.
But there certainly is input from the local distribution company on the specifics of the grid. The county, correct me if I'm wrong on this, Phil, the county did a study a few years back, and we met with them. The school has the offtake to support maybe 1.2, 1.3 megawatts of power, if I believe correctly. So it's something I think that can be overcome, but it makes it the redevelopment companies, the larger ones that we're talking to. We've got an MOU for this project with Panasonic, who's obviously a huge company, and they have a real interest in renewable energy. It's one of their divisions, and a big presence in New Jersey. They, think this is a good opportunity.
So if you're not able to sell it to the electric company, then the alternative, one alternative is to sell it to the schools and possible other,
Right.
Okay.
The way that it's regulated through the PJM and through the BPU is you have to assume that for some reason the school goes out of business, let's say, and it's all going to go into the grid. So the grid has to be able to accept it. That's how they evaluate it from a permitting standpoint. I'm way over my head on energy stuff. We have folks that will be part of our team that evaluate that specifically.
all right, thank you.
Well, this other organic division you're talking about with the biofuel, would they utilize any of the solar energy in there, or will they produce enough of their own to create energy?
Correct. That use is an interesting use that we're starting construction on another project. We're a redeveloper over in Gloucester City and all the way across. And they're building their first facility which is basically a food waste, grocery stores, restaurants, food waste, and they accept it into the facility. It's an enclosed facility. They've used digestion, and so the end products are compost and energy. They typically combine that with a greenhouse. And so you take the food waste in, it produces energy and compost, and then they make new food. So it's kind of a cool, that's the plan there. Their financing program for the first project in Gloucester City is also going to fund 3 other due diligence in certain areas. And they've come out and looked here, and this is a location that they're very interested in. Again, we
Great.
have a, it's non-binding, but we have an MOU stating some interest.
Given the fact that the casino industry has downsized,
Yep.
will that change any of their outlook in terms of bringing this to this market?
I don't believe so. I mean, I think the market here is pretty large. They're looking for 4 or 5 locations throughout New Jersey. They've got the Gloucester City facility over there, one over here, and Atlantic City is obviously a big
Sure.
attraction with the casinos, and there's still quite a few.
Yeah.
And from a demographic standpoint, there's a lot of users here. So,
Whatever we can do to
right.
attract.
What about odors? Is that, are there many malodorous effluents?
Historically, yes. Facilities have been shut down all over the place for food waste recycling because they've basically been outside, and you just bring it and you kind of dump it and you compost it. This is
Inside, right.
This facility is a $30 million construction. It's fully enclosed, specialty trucks, specialty containers on site that go into the trucks. It's all inside. The trucks actually dump inside, negative pressure. So they've used a lot of design parameters to completely eliminate odors, so it's not an issue for.
So by the time you would be to a point of even doing any construction with that, or they would be, this other plant that they would be putting up would be finished in Gloucester County?
Yeah, the Gloucester City facility
Gloucester City.
is, which is actually in Camden County somewhere.
Okay.
I don't know that reason, anyway. The facility is going to start construction this summer and should be operational by next summer, so yes.
Great. I think Judy had a question.
Yeah, I do have a question. The effluents, the water that is involved in this process, where does that go? Is it recycled, or what happens?
Yeah, in the food waste? Yeah, it's recycled on site. They have a tank that it's held in, and it's reused within the process. And there's nominal discharge. The discharge from the facility is typically just regular sanitary discharge. It's more of a, they do keep it moist. It's got a certain moisture content, but it's used up in the process. It's all contained, and there's, so, and if there is any waste, if they need to recirculate, they call it the percolation tank. I think every so often it needs to be hauled off, and then the new mixture of the liquids that they mix for the process.
Given the state where you are now,
Mhm.
and the fact that you know exactly, or you have a good feel on what you would like to see that property used for, do you think that 2 years is a sufficient amount of time to finally get this landfill closed?
I think that in 18 months, we'll be back in here with a definitive plan and talking to the committee about what we want to do. We may be either exactly consistent with the agreement, or working on a lease agreement or a purchase agreement with some of the options under the redevelopment agreement we have right now. I didn't want to ask for too long. We want to move the process forward and demonstrate that to the committee, that we can get that done. But I do expect that we'll be in here, and I hope that that includes initiating the closure, and then after that point, construction of the reuses.
How has the Pinelands received your, treatment of the dump site?
As you know, from our previous discussions, we've been working also with Estelle Manor over there. We're kind of at a snafu, which I was telling Phil about, because the adjacent property owner is trying to leverage access to his property to put the monitoring wells on. We needed to complete that project into some benefit. But anyway, is this, oh, never mind. Yeah, it is. Anyway, I shouldn't have said that. We're having some
But
difficulty
you're-
with access to the
You're
adjacent
making
property owner,
progress
but-
on that area.
But yes, we're making progress. We have reviewed this with, informally with, and I don't think that we're going to have a problem here. Because of the positive nature of the RI and the data that came back, where really, I mean, inert is a strong word, but for all essential purposes, this waste is in the ground. It is not leaching into groundwater. There are very few, I think one or two of the dozens and dozens of soil samples we took is above standard, and that's probably just some historic fill that got mixed in there. It's really very, very, there's not a lot of active impact from the landfill.
So what are we waiting on? What's the next step?
The next step is our funding. We're going through, looking at a series of different funding options. One of the things I presented to the committee last time was the HDSRF. That's also an interesting scenario. We think that's a very viable option.
Can you spell that out?
I'm sorry, Hazardous Discharge Site Remediation Fund.
Oh, thank you.
And that fund, I should have written that out, I apologize. That fund had some difficulty in the past. It was, basically ran out of money. And for about 3 to 4 years, they were not processing any applications. And its purpose, it's funded by business taxes. Its purpose is to handle properties like this. Abandoned properties that municipalities have had to take over that have an environmental impact, and how can we move them forward and get them put back into productive reuse.
Great.
So we are actively engaged in a, one of the new things that came out of, I'm not exactly sure where it came from, but for renewable energy, is they have a 75% matching grant for renewable energy project reuses for remedial action. That's very attractive for obvious reasons. And we have, our company has the first application in with the DEP for renewable energy on a landfill in National Park, again, over on the other side of the western Jersey. And the snafu there, which is, we've been working very diligently for a year, hope very soon they're going to pass that on to the EDA for approval, but the EDA likes to have certainty. They act in some cases like a bank, because in some cases they actually are a bank. And how can they, the question is, how can they be assured if they provide however many dollars it is for that reuse, that reuse will take place? Given what's happened in New Jersey with the solar market, even companies like Panasonic or Onyx or some of the big player companies with lots and lots of money that we work with, they won't commit now for a project that won't start construction in 2 years. They say they're interested, they say it looks good, but they can't commit. So that's what we're working through with.
Jeff, over the last number of years, you've been successful, and your company has been in getting the funding, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
You've gotten a considerable amount of funding.
We've got a considerable amount of funding here for Hamilton, yes. And we just did get a supplemental grant, I should correct it. Supplemental grant will be approved for National Park as an initial phase, and we have 2 more parts going forward with that. But now, and that's because now the HDSRF fund, Hazardous Discharge Site Remediation Fund, is back and healthy again.
Good.
There was whatever you call it on the last ballot, what did we vote? We voted to put a referendum, there you go, thank you. We voted to put a continuous stream, a little bit different, into the fund, so it's healthier again. They're being very careful about how they distribute, so they don't run out again, but it is a healthy fund, and there is earmark.
Would an example of underfunding under item E, creative private funding, would that be the solar application?
Yeah, most of these funding things we're looking for here is to get us from where we are today to landfill closed and pad ready.
Right.
So, and we think that the solar and the biofuels or organic diversion facility, they'll fund themselves. We'll obviously work and cooperate with them, but they'll fund themselves. And so, as we have had and continue discussions with them, conventional financing is, hey, they're going to pay X amount for lease payments, so we'll go, fund that based on that credit of that, that's conventional. Unconventional is things like the EB5 and those kind of private financing.
Thank
tools.
you.
Good.
And I think it's just, and I'm sure, you're talking to Phil about this, but, I don't know if this is actually in the industrial park, but it's in the area of the industrial park. And we're really working now on implementing a pilot program because we want to establish activity in that park. We want to get
Right.
the properties, you know, building and creating jobs and bringing business to Hamilton Township. And I think this whole thing, number one, helps to make that more attractive.
Sure.
But, you know, if Panasonic wants to build a plant here in our industrial park after they put their solar panels up, we have a pilot program for them eventually. Soon we will, actually.
Great.
So I think it's just something to, for you to definitely, you know, stay informed on. But, you know, I think the two work hand in hand to bring the business to Hamilton, which is what we're really trying to do in that area.
Yeah, and we've met with the HTIC on several occasions and are familiar with the plans. In fact, what I have in the memo here is we're actually interested in adding, and when I say that, I say acquiring in some way, some of the adjacent parcels to use in some of these uses, or maybe an expanded
And the other
redevelopment.
positive thing is if something like that comes, it creates job opportunities,
Exactly.
absolutely.
which is, this area is in dire need of it, so,
Right,
That's what we
This
want.
is solely within the industrial park.
yes.
Correct,
yes.
yes. right.
Yeah,
It is.
it's in the middle and surrounded by other
Correct.
lots.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it fell into the properties that would get the pilot or not. I wasn't sure. So
Bill?
Jeff,
that's what I thought. Okay.
This is basically the hole in the donut is the industrial.
That's what I
Yeah,
thought.
See it on the map.
Everything else would be under the rehabilitation designation. This does have redevelopment designation.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
Jeff, how does this closure compare to what the Pinelands requires? And are they moving towards a more lenient way of closing a landfill?
Let's say they're moving towards where appropriate, they're moving towards a less expensive way where scientifically it makes sense.
Okay,
The
good.
the presumptive remedy in the plan is an impermeable cap.
Yeah,
right?
I know, it's very
Which
expensive.
costs
Is it $5 million or?
At least.
At
on-
least.
On this size property, maybe more than that. And we're thinking right now somewhere between 1.5 and 3, depending on what all the bells and whistles and final design and
Good.
permitting is, on what we've got in mind, and maybe even less, but that's where we're going. So they engaged the United States Geological Service, USGS, to do a study of the 60-some-odd landfills, and they did that, and they put them in categories of low, medium, and high. And I think this one is in the medium range, and I think that's because they didn't have RI data when they did that work, and they didn't even go that far into it. But with the data we have, I'm sure it's classified as a low risk.
Good.
Good. Thank you.
Well, with that, I'll make the motion to approve the 2-year extension request.
Second,
A motion is second. Questions or comments? Mrs. Anderson, please, a voice roll call, please.
Ms. Scatto,
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard.
yes.
Mr. Kurtz,
Yes.
Mrs. Link,
Yes,
and Mayor Silver.
Yes,
All yes and carried.
and thank you, Jeffrey.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate your efforts.
Good to
I'm
see
sure
you
you're gonna
again.
see.
Get it closed for us, please.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you
Don't
very
come so
much.
tan. You're making us all jealous.
There you go, right. Okay, the next item on the agenda is D, Remington and Vernick's proposal for engineering services for the fiscal year 2015 NJDOT Municipal Aid Project, Malaga Road, Section 4, fee not to exceed $42,000.
So this is for the repaving.
That
This
section.
is for the reconstruction of the
Reconstruction.
next section of Malaga Road, which starts slightly west of Jackson Road and extends in the easterly direction to the other side of Jackson Road.
Okay.
Approximately 1/2 mile.
Do we need to resolve the conversation around the patching before we approve this, or?
No, this stands on its own. I
Okay.
mean, we have this municipal aid funding,
Okay.
so we will proceed with this.
Okay.
Okay, good.
say that again, from what road to what road does
It-
this?
It's approximately a 1/2 mile stretch. It starts on the west side of Jackson and proceeds to the east side of Jackson.
Okay,
Okay. I'll make the motion to approve.
Second,
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? Voice roll.
yes, I have a couple
Sure.
of comments. Can you detail a little bit more of the plan on how long this is going to take? I know it's a pretty dire, project, and I was wondering, when are you going to start your engineering and so on and so forth? Is it possible to give any dates?
What we intend to do is, if committee approves the proposal tonight, we'll schedule the survey immediately, and we'll start work as soon as possible in the design so that we can get it out to bid as quickly as possible. I think we put in, my recollection is approximately 60 calendar days from date of authorization to proceed to getting it out to bid. Mike, am I correct?
That's what I was just looking for.
It should be on the second page.
60 calendar days.
I believe, Mrs. Link, I believe it was 60 calendar days from the date of authorization to proceed.
Okay, Judy?
Thank you.
We have a voice roll call. Mrs. Anderson, please.
Okay. Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you. Item E, request from the lacrosse team to place a storage shed at Leapy Track Recreational Facility.
I'll make a motion that we table this request right now, and the reason for that would be that we had a meeting, Ronnie was present, and I believe we agree that there's more discussion needed. Ronnie brought this up too. We feel that we need to bring Brett Knoll, Public Works, into it a little more, and then possibly after some meetings with more of the township involved in Public Works, then possibly get the groups together and continue that meeting. Rodney, you want to add to that? Or?
Yeah, no, I just want to say that we recognize that lacrosse has a legitimate need for storage, and so do some of the other teams there. We know that the baseball does, the football team does, and what we would like to avoid is having a hodgepodge of different colored, different shaped facilities out there. We're also going to be developing our own plan for a storage facility out there, so we wanted to do a couple of things. One, we wanted to get together with the teams, let them understand what the situation is, and see if we could get them to perhaps share storage until such time as we can get our facilities met. Our second meeting was we were going to get together with the township, the Public Works, and others to sort of decide when we think we can build the more permanent shed. So that's what we talked about.
I agree. I think that's...
Okay, so we have a motion to table it.
Second.
And a second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Mayor, if I could just add, I had spoken to Mr. Jacobs today with regard to what, if any, Pinelands approvals will be required to construct the shed. And as long as it's a 12 by 20 shed on existing impervious surface, existing paving, no approval would be required from the
Okay.
commission. So we could just,
That's the
if it's,
existing pervious pavement.
12
yeah,
by
if
20.
there's a limit to the area, but my understanding is it was supposed to be about 12 by 20.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's.
But if it's
listed
on
in
the
memo.
existing
Yeah.
paving and the existing impervious surface, no approvals are required.
Okay, thank you.
Great, that's one less.
Okay, thank you.
obstacle.
Next item is public hearing on ordinances, A 1789, 2015, authorizing the sale of lots 1 and 13 in Block 632 and granting contiguous owners the right to prior refusal to purchase the same by sealed bid process. This is a public hearing. Does anyone in the public wish to speak on it? These lots are in Mitzvah.
Move to close the public portion?
Second.
A motion is second. Any questions or comments on it? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Can we make a motion to adopt?
I think we can, can't we?
Make a motion to adopt?
Second.
Second.
Motion is second. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Let's have a voice roll call. Thank you. I knew
Ms.
you were looking
Gatto?
at me.
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
Yes.
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Item B, 1790, 2015, authorizing the sale of Lot 8, Block 631, and granting contiguous owners the right to prior refusal to purchase the same by sealed bid process. This is a public hearing. Does anyone wish to speak on this?
Move to close public hearing.
Second.
Motion is second. Questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Move to adopt?
Second.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments on the adoption? Mrs. Anderson?
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
yes,
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Okay, item 8, extension and dash award of contracts. A, authorize the exercise of option to extend the fleet management and maintenance contract bid number 2011-03 with Centers Integrated Services, Centera Integrated Services LLC, formerly G4S Integrated Fleet Services, for the calendar year 2015 in the amount of $464,134.98. Amount subject to change upon annual review of units within each class by change order.
And Mike, this is within budget?
Yes.
Yes. Make
Okay,
the
so
motion to
Second.
approve?
I have a motion and a second. Questions or comments? Another voice roll call, Mrs. Anderson.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
yes,
Mayor Silva?
Yes,
All yes and carried.
thank you. B, authorize the award of the South Jersey Power Cooperative bid for electricity for the 24-month period, June 2015 to May 2017, to Constellation New Energy in the amount of 0.7367 per kilowatt hour.
Yeah, that had to be corrected.
Yeah, it
should
did,
be
that's the correct,
That's what
right.
he was.
0.07367.
That was the correction I wrote in from the change.
So
This-
moved. So
Go
moved.
ahead.
second,
Motion is second. Questions or comments? Another voice roll call, Mrs. Anderson.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
yes,
Mayor Silva?
Yes,
All yes and carried.
thank you. C, authorize the extension of bid 2010-01 solid waste collection contract with Waste Management of New Jersey, Inc. on a month-to-month basis or until the award of new bidding of contract in the amount of $50,840.38 per month for curbside collection and $4,057.93 per month for interlocal agreements for waste hauling.
Make a motion?
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments?
Just a comment, I think we're close to approving the solid waste contract. It's just going through, I think, attorney review.
Attorney review.
Yeah. Okay.
And another comment, I think the price is very favorable.
Yep.
So,
Thank
good
you.
too.
Roll call,
We
Mrs.
we
Anderson.
have reviewed that, the contract, and compared it to the bid specification today. My office has issued a letter to Ingrid saying that it complies and it is substantially complete in all respects.
Great,
So that should be on our next meeting agenda.
perfect.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz? Mrs. Link?
yes,
Mayor Silva?
Yes,
All yes and carried.
thank you. Consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve consent agenda A with the addition through D.
A motion, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Personnel, Mr. Solicitor, if I read all of these out, can we do it at one vote? I can. Okay, personnel, approve the Cove staff for 2015. Alexander Hand, day manager at $13.25 per hour. Carly Losasso, alternate day manager at $13 per hour. Abigail Hogan, beach badge checker at $8.38 per hour. Abigail Hogan, alternative lifeguard at $9 per hour. Van Logan, lifeguard at $9 per hour. Carly Losasso, lifeguard at $9.75 per hour. Kaylee Stark, lifeguard at $9.25 per hour. And Deanna Sido, lifeguard at $9.25 per hour.
So moved.
Before there's a vote on it, we have a motion and a second. I would invite any of you that has any objection to any particular individual to voice that at this time. If not, you can vote on the motion.
So you made the motion, right?
I made the motion, and
Yeah, I
somebody over
seconded.
there.
Judy
seconded?
seconded.
Okay.
Any questions or comments? Can we have a roll call, Mrs. Anderson?
Ms. Gatto?
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard?
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz?
Yes.
Mrs. Link?
yes,
Mayor Silva?
Yes.
All yes and carried.
Thank you. B, appoint Ryan Brady, part-time special law enforcement officer, CELO, Class 2 at a rate of $14.34 per hour, start date to be determined. This appointment is contingent upon the successful completion of a background investigation.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Ms. Gatto,
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard,
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz,
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor Silva.
Yes.
All yes and carried.
C, authorize advertising for part-time fire prevention rental housing code enforcement inspector.
So moved.
Motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments? Roll call, please, Mrs. Anderson.
Ms. Gatto,
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard,
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz, Mrs. Link,
Yes.
Mayor Silva.
Yes.
All
Thank you.
yes and carried.
And just a note, that was a backfill. They both were backfills.
Yes, thank you. Approvals, payroll and bills totaling $6,895,300.44.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Ms. Gatto,
Yes.
Mr. Gouchard,
Yes.
Mr. Kurtz,
Yes.
Mrs. Link,
Yes.
Mayor Silva.
Yes.
All yes and
Thank you.
carried.
Reports, Mr. Administrator, how was the vacation?
Very nice, Mayor, very nice, very relaxing.
Smiling, so it had to be good.
Yes.
Huh?
it
Happy
was.
time, right?
Yes, thank you. for
Good.
asking. There is one issue that Deputy Mayor Gatto brought up that we should resolve, and that is whether we want to hold off on paving or hold off on patching until we do the paving. Now, my understanding is last week we put up some rough road signs.
Are you talking about Malaga Road,
Malaga
right?
Road, I
Right,
apologize.
okay.
Oh, we did put up,
Yeah, we put up signs saying rough road, and my understanding is Brett says he can maintain the status out there, the status quo out there, as long as the paving is done by winter, prior to winter.
Yes.
And so the only thing I would ask is as long as our attorney's okay with it, we just need to answer that question.
Yeah, I
the
think
money.
that based on the information that we have and the project now approved, that I think we should hold off on the patching, go with the paving so that we are not basically paving over $50,000. And I think we just need to have a point of no return so that if we see that the paving isn't going to get done by X date, we still have the time to do the patch before it becomes winter.
I would,
I think that's,
are we talking about just a very glorified patching, or where you're, just doing a part of the road and taking it all up and
yeah,
running it
as
down,
I understand,
or-
the patchwork we were going to be doing wasn't going to be hot mix, which is what Brett would be doing to maintain it right now. It was going to be actually piecing squares and putting in a whole flat spot.
Correct.
Yeah.
The milling and patching program was just that. It was going to mill out the deteriorated sections of paving, evaluate the subgrade, and then basically repave the sections that were in fact deteriorated.
Yeah, but presently, you have patched different holes or,
Yeah, that's routine
Routine
maintenance that's
patching.
done by Public
Okay.
Works.
all right, so that's,
Now, if I
that
heard you
helps.
correctly, you said how many days till you go out to bid? 60, 90?
We anticipate, be honest, Mayor, I apologize, I didn't have that document with me, but my recollection is it was 60 days till we would have the project out to bid, but in no way would it extend past the winter season.
Okay, so it would be done at least in the next 90 to 100 days?
It would definitely be out to
Just so
bid.
you know, because obviously with Brett keeping an eye on it and doing what he does, that's going to be a contentious time, obviously, okay? Because of the amount of traffic that road does entertain on a daily basis, so.
Certainly.
Now, if it ever gets to a point where it becomes
An issue.
an issue, hopefully we'll be prepared to address it. Okay.
Correct. What we can do, Mayor, is we can work with the existing contractor to leave the contract open. And
Okay.
if in fact we have a situation where we have to do some patching before the winter, obviously we would be responsible for some type of remobilization charge, but we'll discuss with the contractor keeping that contract open.
All right.
Perfect.
yeah, and
Give us an
I
option.
good.
support what Ms. Gatto said, but I actually think the cost was 70,000, wasn't it? Isn't that what we were talking about?
What I
before?
had done, Mr. Gouchard, is after the last meeting, when there was some discussion, Ms. Gatto had some questions about it, we went back and calculated what the value of the Malaga Road work was, and it came in somewhere around 54,000.
Okay.
Now, that also included the areas that are outside
Exactly.
of the DOT funding area. So it's something less than 54,000 for the Malaga Road work.
Okay.
Okay, so do we need to formalize that, or are you good?
I think,
I think the strategy is on the record.
Let me see if I understand this. Township Committee had initially approved a milling and patching, and that contract went out to bid.
Correct.
And the contractor is a successful bidder and is out there doing the work now.
They're actually going to start on Holly Street this Thursday, and the understanding was that next week they would go out and begin work on Malaga Road.
Is the contract documents unit priced?
Yes.
And does it give the township the ability to designate what gets done and what doesn't?
We have estimated quantities for both Malaga Road and also for Holly Street. And I had sent a memo out last week indicating that our Holly Street quantities were actually higher than anticipated. So I think we'll probably end up being maybe a wash on the quantities between what we may reduce the quantities on Malaga Road and what we're increasing the quantities on Holly Street.
So it boils down to whether or not there's discretion in the existing contract to direct the work, and it sounds to me like there is. That being said, there would be no need for any action.
okay.
The action would be a subsequent action awarding the paving project once the bid specifications are done.
Thank you, thank you.
And for the record, to answer your email with regard to Holly Street, I say, do what you got to do. There's a lot of work that needs to be done there.
No, absolutely. And Mayor and Committee, typically when we have a situation where during the course of construction, we exceed contract quantities, we typically deal with that as an as-built change order. But I know how closely the Township Committee is monitoring the finances and what we're spending on the road program. So I just kind of wanted to get, a verbal concurrence that we would proceed even though we exceeded the original contract amount.
What part of Holly Street is supposed to be fixed?
It's
There's
all
actually
over
sections, Mrs. Link, starting just
just off of
east
50.
of Route 50 all the way to Cologne Avenue. Basically, all the areas that have deteriorated are going to be milled out and basically repaved. If you drive through there, we had a brief conversation before the meeting, but the areas are marked in white paint and actually labeled with a patch number
Yeah, you can see
on the
it.
roadway. And I think there's 37 patches on the roadway.
I saw several patches. They were very substantial, and
Yes.
they seemed to be very smooth when I rode over them. And I was just wondering what specific, not from 50 to Cologne, but are you going to start at 50 and then?
Yeah, we actually, last week, I went out with one of my inspectors, and we walked and rode the entire roadway. And we basically marked out all the areas that Public Works is now patching on a routine basis, and marked those out as the areas that we're going to mill and pave. And it does two things. It makes a better road surface for vehicular traffic, number one, and it's also going to cut down on your Public Works maintenance, so it's going to cut down on your cost. Because now, if we take these areas, mill them, and resurface them, Public Works won't have to be out there patching and doing remedial work out there on the roadway.
Is there a lot of traffic that goes up and down that road?
There's a pretty significant amount of traffic, and it's also, I believe, our evacuation route.
It's an
Yeah, it
emergency
is.
route, and it's a
Emergency
major
route.
thoroughfare for two of our firehouses.
Definitely a cross-cut road.
Yeah, I know,
yes.
I know the emergency route, but I'm saying, for instance, in putting certain patching down, is there a lot of, I mean, when I was on it, I didn't see anyone but myself on it. Is there a lot of passage between Cologne to 50 that will weigh heavy on the patches? I don't know.
Well, a fire truck.
Well, there are sections of the roadway that are in a pretty deteriorated condition, and what happens is that tends to spread, because now you've exposed the subgrade, it gets wet, it gets worse. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in there and mill off the pavement,
Okay.
see if there's any areas that have a deficient subbase, replace that, and then resurface it.
Okay.
And the transition is always very smooth. If you rode Malaga Road and you could see where the prior patching was done, section paving.
Correct.
Actually, the transition is very smooth.
Yeah, yeah.
We anticipate.
Even the
this-
regular patching was smooth to me. I rode my
Wow,
car.
your street must be real bad if you think Holly is smooth.
No,
Because
I paid attention to the patching,
it
and,
hasn't been done yet.
no,
No, I think Mrs.
the
Link means the
regular maintenance patching
the
has been
pothole
done.
patching that was done by Public Works.
You know
Yeah,
what it is, Judy? You and I are used to Park Road. So,
That's what I'm saying. You guys must be really bouncing up and down if you think this is smooth, because
okay.
us in that area are,
Well,
Bouncing
it
up and
is
down
a
on that
source
road.
of comparison, right?
Amen. Michael, anything else?
Nothing else, Mayor.
Mr. Solicitor,
nothing to report.
Mr. Engineer.
No, I don't think I have anything further, Mayor. Just, again, reiterating that they're going to start work out on Holly Street on Thursday. I believe they're going to be out there 2 days with the initial milling and paving, and then they'll follow up after the fact, restriping the areas that were milled up. And then I think the intent is to proceed right back out to Malaga Road. So what we'll have to do is go out there and mark those areas out in advance of the contractor going out to begin work.
Good.
Is there any spec work done on Park Road at this point?
I'm sorry, Mrs.
Is
Link?
there any is there any engineering work done on Park Road at this
We've,
point?
I had a conversation with Mr. Blankenship when they were doing the water main work, and he said that the subgrade material was kind of questionable, so we've scheduled some cores to go out there and core the pavement, see how thick the existing pavement is, and also to evaluate the subgrade, and we're working on the design plans for Park Road.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't mean to, I concur with Bob. It just, even though they smoothed it out and seemed to have done a lot of work, it just is, when you go down that road, you totally vibrate. Your car vibrates totally throughout the.
You know, Judy, if you read the press today, you would see, and unfortunately, it's becoming a big issue in a lot of municipalities, that the gas company in Margate now is starting to rip up the roads there. And it must be the substructure of all their old infrastructure pipes that are starting to give way.
They're trying to replace a lot of the bare steel pipes with the plastic. We saw that out on Park Road, Rundle. They're doing a lot in Laureldale, but most of the work on Laureldale they're doing in the shoulders, whereas on Rundle, they actually did the work in the
And
paving.
I think this is going to become more of an issue throughout the county, too.
Well, you and I had spoken, Mayor, about Rundle. When they're finishing there with the gas main, they're going to mill and repave half of Rundle Avenue.
Half of it, right?
Correct.
The half that they ripped.
Like half that they,
Okay, good. And that's important, though. And then, Judy, we understand. I mean, it's not the way it should be, and obviously it'll be corrected.
Okay.
Okay? Eddie, Bob,
I think I'm done, Mayor.
you finished too?
Do you have any
Judy,
questions?
While you were speaking, you're welcome. Woody?
Oh,
Yes, sure.
Okay, I talked to Fred Neville today, who is the president of the Mays Landing Merchants Association. And as scheduled, they're having a meeting on this Wednesday at 7 o'clock, 7:15, in regards to the HPC ordinance. And Cheryl Fetty is going to talk about it, and I did also ask Phil Sartorio to be present to talk about that to the Mays Landing merchants, so they get a better idea of where we're going with the ordinance. Also, I'd like to say something in regards to Mother's Day. I'm going to urge everyone to, send flowers or whatever to your mom on Mother's Day. But in conjunction with that, I have not mentioned this before, but I'm interested in doing spearheading a senior advisory committee similar to the one that is done in Weymouth Township, headed by Millie Messina, and who was past mayor of Weymouth, and now she's on the planning board. But she has a senior health fair, which she plans to do in the fall, And she said if I was to, if this was to materialize, that perhaps we could do a senior health fair in the spring, bringing information to the seniors that is vitally important to them. I think that would be something that we could do without costing the township any additional money, but show our seniors that we do appreciate them and that we are interested in the fact that they have needs and so on and so forth. I know that the Atlantic County Senior Citizen facility is huge, and I've been there myself, but a lot of the seniors here don't like traveling all the way there, and so on and so forth. So I was on a bus trip that was sponsored by the Historic Society down to Washington, D.C., and it was just a fabulous trip and well organized by Cheryl Fetty. And so I think that maybe something of that nature could be organized. So without any further comment, I think that, this is something that I will be working on and seeing if it's viable and who would be interested to be on this committee.
Well, Judy, there was an event, was a senior expo and a health fair that was held out at the Fairways a month ago. Then they had people from all over the township there.
Oh.
It was put on by one of the assemblymen, and it was well attended. They had people from the county there. I happened to stop over, and they had the police department there. Chief had several representatives there talking to the people that were very interested in a lot of things, and obviously the age-restricted communities are a good place to start because a lot of people do go into them, and I think they're very well aware of issues like this, and it's not a situation of a cost or not cost. There's always a lot of companies that like to get involved in this. And,
Okay.
And even at hometown celebration is probably a good thing to have. So I think, utilizing that the proper way, you can get a larger focal group coming in and people paying attention to it. So that may save you some effort, too.
Yeah, that would be great. Okay,
John?
there it goes.
So wait, I'm sorry, so wait, this is just gonna be something you're gonna be doing, or are you gonna be looking for our staff to be doing work?
Well, I'm looking to, present it as something we would vote on.
Okay,
Okay. I don't think I would do it all by myself.
Okay.
Just like the green team, advisory. But I'm looking to, gain, a small committee that would meet and plan this and, reach out to the different companies and so on and so forth.
yeah. But, I mean, of course, we wanna do stuff to engage our seniors, and I think through the age-restricted communities, we have good relationships there to be able to start there. I'm just concerned on our end, who would do the work, and it's in terms of planning a bus trip, it sounds like we would need some kind of a rec director, which we don't have, so.
No, I don't. Cheryl Fetty and John Ash were not, they did not do it through a rec director.
No, that's fine, if you're saying through volunteers, but, okay, I thought you were
Yeah.
saying for us to plan it
No,
as a
no,
township.
no.
Okay,
I mean, I would like the blessings of the township, but the work would be done by the volunteers.
okay.
I
Forward to the
haven't
plan.
really presented that to Mr. Jacobs yet, but
Oh, okay.
I would like to.
Quick, before he
that.
goes back on vacation again, right, Mike? Thanks, Judy.
Okay.
John?
I'd just like to first echo Amy's comments earlier on the adoption of a great budget tonight. She had all the points right on mark, and great staff, great work with committee, and it was excellent to handle everything the way it was done with a great budget. Also, As Deputy Chairman of the Special Events Committee, I just wanted to mention we have some exciting things happening in the township coming up, including the hometown celebration, the wine festival, 9/11 ceremonies, Halloween parade, tree lighting, POW MIA Day, the Veterans Day, and also the Mays Landing Merchants Association has produced a calendar of events, which has been very helpful this year. It's available throughout the entire township at a lot of different business locations, and it's also available at the clerk's office and in the administrator's office here at the town hall. It lists all of our events, and we're very happy to be able to show that. It's something that the people can look at and help plan, so we can avoid 2 events on the same day for something that we would like to spread out a little bit. So perhaps Arlene at public comment might touch on the dates for us. I don't know. We'll have to twist her arm, but
She looks like she got a big paper in her hand already.
She looks ready.
Yeah,
Ready.
we're giving them out at the skating rink, too.
yeah, good. That's
Yeah.
right. Thank you, Judy. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like just to add on to some of the comments that were made. One, with regard to aging, I'd like to remind
Way to
folks,
segue,
maybe there's a
Rodney.
better way of saying that.
The aging.
But we have a Stockton Center for Successful Aging. And that's what I was thinking of.
Successful, okay.
And that center is quite active. It has all kinds of activities. There's an event coming up, and I don't have the date with me, but it's pardon me?
May 13th.
Thank you, May 13th.
She was going to bring it up.
It's going to be at Stockton. It's going to have a number of exhibitions, a number of presentations. I attended one once before, and I would certainly encourage any of you that can to attend. And I guess you're going to speak about it? Okay. Well, I do have a brochure, and it is on the website, so I would encourage anybody interested to go see the website. Also, with regard to aging, or with regard well, it happens to all of us.
Yeah, but the key is successful.
Yeah, I like the success. I feel like I should go to the successful aging seminar so I have a leg up.
But I just wanted to comment on Ms. Link's suggestion, and I do think it's entirely possible to have this done on a community basis, or certainly the vast majority of it. So
What's that?
The senior group and senior activities that she was referring to. So it's something that's certainly worth exploring. I want to remind people that our green team is meeting at the library at 6:30. It's the first, it's meeting here this time. Well, thank you. Yeah, that's right. I might have been at the library. The meetings are on the first Thursday of the month at 6:30, and we got a lot of enthusiastic people there, and I'd certainly welcome anyone's attendance. Just to add to the events coming up that John pointed out, I attended a planning meeting for a July 1st, probably through 4th event at the mall this year. You're going to be hearing more about it. It's going to celebrate and award veterans for their contributions, among other things. But it should be an interesting event. All the veterans organizations are supporting. The mall has been very helpful, and they have all kinds of ideas, and maybe there'll be some exciting things for this. So I'd keep that in mind. I know July 1st is starting, and there'll probably be a theme continued through the 4th. I guess that's all I can think of. Thank you.
Thank you. Amy?
First, I'd just like to say, may the 4th be with you all. And with regard to calendars, I want to say, Ingrid, thanks for this calendar you put. I think you put it in our departmental reports. It's really great. There's so much going on. It's nice to have it all in one spot for us. So thank you very much for that. And also just want to make note, I don't think it's been said yet, that this Saturday is the Old Time Market in the park. I don't know what time that starts. 10? Okay, Old Time Market in the park at 10. I understand Mr. Anderson will be out there peddling some goods as well, so
Oh, it's lovely.
it's always fun to see Mr. Anderson out there. So just want to make note of that, and I understand, Mr. Mayor, you're going to talk about the wonderful event that happened on Saturday night. So I'll go ahead and shut up.
No, I appreciate it. It was a young event.
It was a
Yeah,
gratifying-
Saturday night, I had the pleasure of representing the township and presenting two proclamations at the Rotary Awards ceremony. One was for Business Person of the Year. It was promoted to Larry Seidler. Larry, obviously, if you listen to the radio, you've heard about East Coast Roofing. He's a very benevolent individual. He gives away a free roof to a needy individual every year. One year, I believe, he gave 2 roofs out. He also volunteers at the Atlantic City Rescue Mission, and he's a big supporter of Feed the Hungry Children in Guatemala and Honduras. I don't think you can say enough about people like that who extend themselves beyond their business and do charitable work, not only in the county, in his neighborhood, but throughout the world. And I think that was one of the reasons why he was selected as Business Person of the Year, and we presented him with a proclamation. The other one, which was the First Responder of the Year, went to Officer Jason Sexton for his life-saving efforts that occurred in May of last year, where he saved the life of Keith Prince, who suffered sudden death cardiac arrest. I think, as it was the night that the police awards were here, and that gentleman and his family were sitting in the first row, and I was sitting where Phil was sitting alongside of Amy, and when the chief was reading about Officer Sexton's efforts that day, this gentleman stood up in the audience and pointed to the officer and started to clap for him. I think everybody in this room, and it was full to capacity, they were wall-to-wall in here, recognized that that was the man that whose life Officer Sexton had saved, and unanimously everybody stood up and started applauding. And it was probably one of the more emotional times that I've been at one of those events. And it was equally emotional the other night when we presented him with the proclamation, and we named May 2nd in his honor, as set that side that day in this township in honor of him. I don't think most people realize, and I know we have a gentleman in the audience tonight who had suffered sudden death cardiac arrest several years ago, Art Shanker, whose wife saved his life. And I think when you realize what happens and the fact that the cardiologists at the hospital say that less than 10% of the people who suffer this never make it to the hospital alive, and of the 10% who do, half of them remain in a coma. So what was so outstanding about his efforts, the whole time that he was doing the compression, the CPR on Mr. Prince's chest, they had shocked this individual 8 times. He never gave up. Officer Sexton never gave up. And finally, when he started breathing, they flew him to Jefferson. But it was very emotional again that night because the entire Prince family was there. And they were just, you can't imagine how a young man like this, 41 years old, who Officer Sexton gave him back a father, a husband, a brother, a relative. I mean, it's just so moving. I think you have to be in and exposed to that to understand that at this time in our life, when we hear so many negative things about police people, policemen and women, I don't think they touted enough of the good work that they do every day on the streets, whether they save somebody's life, whether they save somebody's property, whether they do all the positive things they do. The few times there's negative things that happen, those are the rare ones. They're the ones that don't represent the people who wear the badge and protect you in your community. So they were so exceptional. I was honored to be there and make those presentations, and it was a good evening. And I think the township has to be proud that we have people like that serving and living in our communities. So every day I'm thankful for people like that. So with that, I'll open it up to the public. Anyone in the public wish to speak?
Move to close the public portion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, before we go into executive, I did have one other thing.
It's not about elderly people.
No, it's not. Well, I don't know if he's in that category. Thursday, we'll be attending the dinner honoring Dr. Kesselman.
That's right.
A former Township Committee member here who will be moving onto a wonderful new position as a president of a university. And, in true Dr. Kesselman form, you saw his comments in the paper that he is taking the acting presidency of Stockton in his last 8 weeks. And he has a lot on his plate with that, and he said a lot can happen in 8 weeks. And we know that
yes.
Dr. Kesselman is a mover and shaker, and we were proud to serve with him. And I just wanted to make sure we took a moment to recognize his time here, not only on Township Committee, but as a member of our community for so long. He will be sadly missed. I know I will miss him, but wish him nothing but success. So.
Good.
When does this dinner take place and where?
Well, it's Thursday at Seaview, but we had to pay and reserve spots already.
I think anybody who saw Harvey up here served with us.
Well, he was
You
on
think
our-
about Harvey's career in this township. He was on the school board a number of years, and yes,
That's
correct?
right. Yes.
And the one term he served up here, he went through the most difficult of times with us. And, he was instrumental in putting on the strategic planning throughout the township, and many people, whether you're on committee or not, participated in it. And he went through us, and he was a driving force in helping us eliminate our structural deficit here. And I think Harvey left an indelible mark on many of us, and he taught me one word that I never forgot the meaning of: sustainability. And I think that's what guides me in a lot of my decisions here in the township, and I'll forever be grateful to him for what he did and what he continues to do. So thank you for bringing that up.
You mentioned the tough times that he dealt with on the township, but I think he may have gotten some of that training on the school board, because at the time.
That's right, you were on there a number of years.
Yeah, at the time we were on the board,
With
we
a
had
different
some
ghetto.
real serious problems. I think the teachers were without a contract for something like 3 years. It was very difficult, but we came out of it with numerous awards for the school, and we came out well.
Yeah,
So I don't know how Harvey's going to do it. He's got to prepare to make a major move,
yeah.
and prepare for that, and at the same time, try to straighten out the situation in Stockton. That's,
It's quite a feat.
He'll do
Got
it.
his
He
hands
feels
full.
pretty confident. He'll make some
And-
inroads there.
and University of Southern Maine doesn't know what's in for them.
What's it?
The University of Southern Maine,
Yeah.
where he's going.
Mrs. Anderson?
Be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Hamilton that this meeting be adjourned to an executive session to discuss the matter of Michael Jacobs versus Eileen Dix and Township of Hamilton litigation, which is exempt from public discussion pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law. Be it further resolved that the governing body will reconvene in public session and confirm the results of the executive session if there is a majority consensus for action to be taken on the matter tonight.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.